Red chili?
What?
She is busy.
It's a familiar menu.
Those tamales are damn good though.
Homemade?
Just.
No, those are not Mexicana, almost like homemade.
Yeah,
Good.
I love them.
Finger
They
food.
were at Payne the other day for the.
I tell you my mommy story, but it's too graphic. We appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm moving my feet again. One more time. Aren't you getting it?
I've only had 20 years here, and I haven't had 65.
Wasn't Charlie's Angels like this when they did the screen?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the day, mister.
Yeah.
Still need a one more board person.
The official.
Visualize it.
Aaron is,
No, I know.
I know.
No, I know.
I know. Hello.
They all working?
yeah, that's why it's.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Was a nice gathering Monday night. At RFK,
Appreciate people who working.
had a band, rocking band. Tearing it up.
Yeah, they were really good.
Yes, have a seat. Go left. Chairs in here. Folks here for public comment.
Oh, okay.
Since we're waiting, I think I'll make that.
Right behind you.
We need to, Rob, do we need to put them in before we start the meeting or do we?
No, you wait, and then they'll introduce themselves. I can let you know why they're here.
This is your public.
Try to draft people for public
Oh,
comment.
Irene, do you have an extra packet
Oh,
that I
is this?
can take to Aaron?
Okay,
He's asking.
even better.
Take to him?
Yeah. he
He
said-
has it in the email.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just have to grab a packet, yeah, but stuff.
Yeah, I emailed it to him. I can send you one, but I'll give it to you tomorrow because I only have a certain amount of copies right now. Okay,
Okay.
but it's in the email I send you guys.
Okay, I'll let him know.
So I. The kid was there and then in the bag with the screen.
We're done.
I appreciate it.
Red chilies right there in that little crock pot.
The beans on? Or the beans got eaten?
Beans are gone.
My goodness. You think the red chili is a little later?
Acres of bread. Bread in a bowl. And bread warming and we need to take us, like, we'll go to show, I knew to take a journal to it, make these dinner, but I didn't get to. That's all.
Bags of empanadas. Take home.
Those weren't there last night.
No, it's Biscochitos on Monday,
Yeah.
and there's Biscochitos over there too, aren't there? I didn't grow this big skipping hills, Mark.
No, it's a little exercise.
Red chilies.
Yeah, it is.
Breakfast for you. Hi, Carmen.
Well, I have a cup of coffee and a cookie most mornings.
We need coffee, we need coffee. It's
Well,
morning.
take some empanadas with you. I'm not supposed to have cookies, but. Oh, wow. Oh, it's a short list of people that are supposed to have cookies. Yeah.
Thank you,
Sam is
Linda.
the top of the list.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Linda.
She told me I'm ordering food from somewhere else. She's had her run. Change my budget. sometimes she'd rather cook than have to drive all the way across town. But, and once she starts cooking, it's all day. Public comment.
Yeah, we don't need a form for that, but we have to. Form and start the meeting.
Yeah, you're right.
You do it, just put it on, to record.
Yep.
And then add it
You want to do that?
when we get.
Well, I'm just trying to be respectful of their time.
Yeah.
Want to get something to eat, Zoe? Less? Want to get something to eat?
I'm full
There's lots of food.
Oh, that's right, the potluck.
Yeah, potluck is gonna be up.
More of the same food. This is from Monday night still.
Should we start? You wanna do it?
So you
We
can't,
don't do.
you can't approve the agenda, you can't approve the minutes, but we could do public comment. As a discussion,
Yeah, they'd be recorded.
and you'll record it.
Yeah, it is
It is,
recorded.
okay.
So
Okay.
do that.
Okay, so we're gonna start with public comment, while we wait for a quorum to develop of the board.
So you want to come over here so people can see and hear you?
I think
You-
you're public.
you-
you're
myself?
public comment.
You and Zoe are the public
Okay.
comment. So every council meeting has a place where the public can come in and express concerns,
Ask questions.
ask questions.
So my name is Les Peterson, and I'm the bus driver and an educational assistant here. And one of the classes I EA in is ceramics. And Zoe is one of our students. And she has some work that she has done this year. And she would just like to talk a little bit about the ceramics program. You're on, Zoe.
Yeah, so I'm Zoe and I've been in the ceramics program all 4 years of my high school career, on and off semesters. And this year I've really made some outstanding pieces and I've just been able to start selling my pieces and been really successful. Yeah, you can pass them, all of them around and look at all of them.
And they're for sale.
Yes,
I just wanted to promote them.
they are for sale. So anything that's not for sale, I take home Christmas gift, you know? But ceramics is always fun and I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot of techniques. I've done a lot of good work and it's something I'm proud of.
And who teaches the class?
Les is my current teacher, but I started with Ben and then on and off with Ben, switched to Tim, and then Les came around.
Can I ask you a question, Zoe? Why do you think this program is important? Not just for you, but for other kids. What are some of the highlights?
It's a good break throughout the day. You get to do something with your hands. It's not. Some students really hate math or writing or other things, Acellus, so having a little break where it's not anything core class related is nice. And also just having a creative outlet, because some students don't like to draw, but they're really good at pottery, or they're good at creating like little figures with the clay, this, that, painting the clay, glazing it. It's really enjoyable for everyone.
So Zoe had heard that due to budget cuts, that the ceramics program might not be here next semester, true? And she came to me and wanted to complain.
Yes.
And so I said, no, what you need to do is come to the governance council and advocate, right? About why it's important, why it's important to you. Because I've supported so it comes out of an artist in residence program. And so Ben is an artist in residence. He has a studio here in the South Valley. Where adults, and I think you've even been invited to participate. I've actually taken the adult class with my grandson. And so I told her she needs to come advocate because I am cutting. I'm doing a reduction in force. And I have So people that were here Monday saw the ceramics that the students had done. They also saw the paper mache that the middle schoolers have done. And so I have people at the middle school advocating for me to keep the art program at the middle school. There are people advocating for me to expand it here at the high school. But it's, so Ben came with a supply list, right, of equipment, of clay for next year. And I don't know, it's probably been 3-4 weeks that I tell Irene when we sit down to sign requests for purchase, but even in the folder, we haven't decided yet.
Yeah.
Because we need to, it's a tough decision, and so, hey, Carlos. Hi. And so, so Zoe's here to advocate, and I know it's not supposed to ask questions during public comment, but I just want to, well, not quite a public comment, and so I just want to make sure that Zoe had the opportunity. I'm not sure I can do it next year, but it is Zoe's last semester. Yes, and so I just, and there's at least one other senior in there. Judea's in there. And Zoe and Judea kind of have a special table because they've been at it for a long time. And Ben actually takes their pieces home and uses more intricate glazes, right, than the typical glazes. that the students have.
Yeah, in his personal studio.
Yes,
He'll take a batch of our finished works and glaze it, and it'll come back looking like that brown one or the blue one.
Didn't
But-
pass it around.
This red. It's a terrible.
I will be visiting Zoe after the.
So I did want to, I can make some comments to the board,
Yeah.
nothing directed at public comment per se, but what I heard, and I'm very appreciative of the students coming in and advocating for things that make them feel proud about themselves. And it's also good to hear that they are using the programs that we put in place, one being a Acellus, and that it's a good break from that. I have used the Acellus. It's a fantastic, wonderful application, but it can be overwhelming, right? You have something, that keeps you motivated, and if you do have a program like this, that's a good thing. So as we go through our deliberations on funding and financing, etc., I would ask the board to be considerate of those and you guys know me, I'm the math guy, of the non-mathematical things that we do to encourage students to be successful. So we have to keep that in.
There is math.
There is nothing, yes.
I have a comment for her,
to the board, not
To the board.
well, just to let you know that this is very close to my heart, the ceramics program. My son, excelled and is very successful because of this specific ceramic class.
right here.
He's won awards with some of his pieces from Ben's class. He's sparked up a friendship with him after school. I mean, after he graduated, and he sees him on the regular. He was able to get into, go to college in San Francisco because of some of this art that he's done here. So, I appreciate, and you know what? They did ask him to come to a governance meeting once too and tell him why it was important. And he poured out his heart.
Yeah.
From that meeting, Anthony Harkness has been a friend of his still, and he's at DVR. He's had a lot of support because of this program, and if it were gonna shut down, you know what, he'd be right there front line with you.
And when Fernando came, he actually gave one of the
Yeah,
architect.
unfortunately, it was stolen from here. From the front office, and we don't know what happened to it. The ribbon was still there. That piece was gone. He was like, how long was it that it'd been gone and no one noticed? I mean, he went off and off and on. But, yeah, it was one of his pieces that he took first place on. So but he gave it to Robert, and Robert still has some of his pieces in his office. And he makes sure that they're still there.
Definitely next year, I'd be interested in making pieces for a competition.
Yeah, you should. The state fair is always welcoming to pieces. You know Fernando, you've met Fernando, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Shane knows Fernando, so.
And Zoe's one of my favorite students here, and you're actually doing an internship. Is that gonna work out?
Yeah, I have the X3 Future Focus Education internship right now, and then I'm contacting Zia Martinez about a farming internship for my senior capstone project. And something to do after school when I start college.
No, and college is in your plans.
Yeah, business and agriculture.
Good for you.
Okay, thanks, because we're gonna start the meeting. So you guys are.
I have a couple of comments.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Sure.
One thing I can say, I have a 5-year background in ceramics myself. But this program, we started out with about 26 students. At the end of the semester, we had 24. So retention rate is very good. Also, what you're seeing in Zoe's work is wheel work. What we do in the first year is handwork. And some of this sculpture in clay that some of these students are doing is amazing. So it's a really good program for students, and they like it, they stay in it. That's all. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. You guys are welcome to stay through the meeting, get some food.
I want to buy something. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna do roll call. We'll get started with the meeting. We have a quorum. April,
Present.
Lawrence,
Here.
Carlos. Here. Bob. Here. Mark. I'm here. Okay, so we have a quorum.
Yeah, anybody online?
Nobody's on. Oh,
Lanika,
there's Lanika.
Lanika has joined.
You with us, Lanika?
Yeah, I just couldn't click off the unmute.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Lanika's here. We have a full house.
Well, what time did you call
Call the meeting at 4:46. Approval of the agenda, so if I could. And
See?
approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, just approved. Did people get a chance to look at the meetings from the minutes from the last meeting? Yep. Meeting from the last minute.
Like, no.
Any comments on the minutes from last time?
It just seems to get longer and longer and longer.
The minutes?
Yeah.
That's the second one.
Okay. Are there any additions, changes, edits?
I would like to make an edit that, in the finance committee report. I've been reading my reports, maybe you could put in the minutes that if you want, if anybody wants a copy of what I wrote, they're welcome to have it. So. Instead of you writing everything I say, just put a note, hey, the finance committee has a report, if you'd like to see it, contact Lawrence.
Well, yeah. one
Did you
of the
put that in
things-
there?
Why, I know, Treasurer Lauren for Umbrella presented the finance committee report. And then I just, I don't report everything that I'm saying. I'm not in that.
I'm saying for the meeting minutes, is minutes usually capture everything that's discussed. I read something that's probably 200 words. So instead of you putting 200 words in there, if you put a note that says, Lawrence has his report, if you'd like a copy, contact me. In this.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, having just done a CEU class that talks about minutes. And it talks about using minutes as a way of keeping track of progress through the course of a board's working. And so as I was reading these and even the ones before, trying to think, so Lawrence, kind of to your point as an example, some kind of a comment or a summary of your report. Things look good. This was a question, so that a year from now, when there's a new director and they're going back and looking at the minutes, rather than the fact you just gave a report, what's the substance, rather than detail perhaps, what's the substance of what you said? And then But just kind of keep that in mind, April. I know you
So I
probably,
used to do that. I was doing that in the, kind of after the first year, I was doing that and I was giving a pretty big report
right,
and then shorten it up a little bit. So,
you were asked to shorten it up?
well, just to, so-and-so presented in such and such. And that's basically it.
Okay. The thing that caught my attention was the idea of if there are any conclusions or
Right.
decisions that we need to say Lawrence gave this background. We don't have to give all of the background.
And you could say he was worried about head count and that we don't have enough students, for example, to
Yeah.
finance. the
Correct.
So
operation.
like,
So then next month, when we talk about head count or in the job description, there's head count. Someone can go back and say, oh, the board
Yeah.
spoke about
Yeah.
specifically this
And,
topic.
and that's the reason I made my comment, is just so that, there's probably some good nuggets in there. I don't want to lose them for the next person that has to read this.
Yeah, but then it's a question of that, is that, how available we have to make that?
Yeah.
That's all.
I'll figure it out. I know what you mean though.
Yeah,
I
so
have
sort
an
of a
idea.
conclusion after each, like, a summary of whatever happened in that conversation, without going into all of the detail of the conversation.
I think I got you.
Thank you.
It was just kind of new to me as a
Yeah.
different way of thinking about the minutes, as kind of a historical flow of decisions that are made and then,
Be a good timeline.
yeah, time,
So-
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
I get what you're saying.
Even
I'll
Lawrence's comment that, that the poll report is available upon
Uh-huh.
request.
Yeah,
I think it's also, because then people know that that was available, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a variety of ways, but I'm comfortable.
I'll figure it out. And I'll get it in there, Lawrence.
But again, it was kind of new for me to think about minutes. Okay, if I could have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. And opposed, nay, okay. Public comment, we have concluded with Les and Zoe talking about the ceramics program, advocating for continued support for the ceramics program because of the impact it's made on the school and on students. Okay, where's Lena?
So I'm doing this.
Oh,
She had an eye appointment.
okay, so STARS results. Everyone knows, what is STARS, Robert?
Who knows what it's.
I know, but what is it's a semester,
So it's short-term, assessment,
a short-term assessment.
yeah, as opposed to the state test.
Okay.
So it's how we track growth, from the beginning of the semester to the end of the semester, to the end of the year. And so in your packet, you have the STARS data. And so when PED came, and at the beginning of the year, as we are in, need of more rigorous intervention, there were goals that we set, in agreement with them. And the goals that were set were a 5% increase in STARS, results for the first semester and 5%, for the second semester. And so we just recently completed the STARS data, last week, I guess, yeah. Yep. And so you'll see that, the change in reading was 6% and the change in math was 12%. And so, the council continues to want to see the data. This is the data. And this STARS data is used to put people into a remedial reading or math program called Freckles. And so, so many students improved, that we have less Freckle classes in the schedule for next year, or next semester. And so whether,
What I missed, what did you just say?
so Freckle,
Yeah, I know what freckle.
so there are less students having to be put in
Oh,
Freckle.
okay,
And so there are less Freckle classes
gotcha, okay,
it put into the schedule.
okay,
Um,
because of the growth.
because of the growth that they made.
Right, they don't need it anymore.
So there's a red indicator, a yellow indicator, a green indicator. So many students moved out of the red, that we're only
Okay,
putting the lower scores. The lower scores still are going into Freckle. And a large number of the math students are now testing at grade level, which is significant. Now Shane here, is one of the students that showed significant growth. And on Monday, the sweat meeting, the top 10 most improved students in reading got a $100 gift card. The top 10 math students got gift cards, and it wasn't the highest score, it was the most improved. And that's the whole idea, to work harder with it. Now, we can't tell yet whether it's because of stars or whether it's students wanting to get out of stars and taking the out of Freckle and taking the stars more seriously. But regardless, it shows growth and the students taking that assessment seriously. Because if they don't, in the past assessment, they've said, oh, it doesn't count towards my grade, it doesn't count towards my graduation, why should I even try? And so, maybe you want to talk about whether you liked Freckle?
I liked last semester that I was still out of it, and then I improved this semester.
And are you going to be in it next semester? There you go.
You didn't like Freckle, but it worked.
Or I liked that I wasn't in the freaking.
Oh, you didn't have to be in that.
And so there are a lot of students who
I see.
are
You
liking
avoid-
not being in the Freckle class
You'll come through.
because they work so hard on the stars and stuff.
And let me ask you, is it because, is it a status kind of a thing, like being in the remedial? Or is it literally being in that class and work that you're required is?
It's on the computer.
It was being in that class. It wasn't writing. It was always just on the computer. And the teacher wasn't really teaching how I thought she would help us. It wasn't helping as so much Robert wanted me to.
Right, because it was certainly presented as something to really help bring up remedial because of the change in
And,
the
and
level.
so, about halfway through, the staff, we had a conversation about it shouldn't just be all on the computer. That things mixed into that computer. And so this coming semester, we have our reading interventionist using Freckle in one class and then figuring out what other activities would be combined with it. So that there is reading, there is writing, and you're just not sitting there on the
Yeah.
computer. And so, Freckle moving forward, isn't going to look the way Freckle looked this semester. right?
So Robert, who's the population that these numbers are coming from?
The lowest level reading and math school.
High school, Middle
These
school
are high
combined?
school.
high school only?
Yep.
Okay,
And so at the middle school, it was a class. And the students, didn't show the same kind of growth. And so in a discussion with, Aaron, we are now going to incorporate it middle school back into the classes. So they're not just Freckle, so they're not just sitting there on the computer. Aaron, do you wanna comment on that?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, Robert. And, we just decided that, having that particular portion being a standalone class within itself, it didn't provide many opportunities for the teacher to really get in and support because it is a separate class. And, some of the students didn't take it as, I guess, didn't really show too much importance to it until, I think halfway through the semester at that point. And so, Robert and I have been kind of talking about this for the last few weeks, but we kind of, we talked about it earlier this week, and we're going to switch that and phase it back to how we had it rolling out last school year. And that's where the teachers will give up one class period during the week to administer the Freckle in the math and the ELA classes. And then advisory teachers will support one day a week, just so that the students who need that intervention will be able to meet the appropriate time amounts for both math and reading during the week.
So how many kids were in the population for these stars? You got
Those are numbers.
27 kids? Or was it,
27 kids took the test.
okay. And then in December, 33 kids took the test?
Yes,
I think that's percentages, isn't it?
Cause everybody should have taken it.
yeah, you're right.
Everybody takes it.
Yeah.
So everybody in the high school, every
Yes,
student.
those are percentages.
So it's 100% of the students that,
They're,
Yeah.
yeah, close,
If we had an absence, they tried to make it
make it up,
up.
so pretty close to,
The
everybody,
expectation
whole high
is
school.
everybody, yeah.
okay, okay,
because they do it during the advisory.
okay. Okay, so that's the whole high school.
Yes.
So then, the improvement from 27 to 33% was the whole population of the high school.
That's right.
27 students improved.
No,
No, it's percentage.
exactly.
Oh,
They were in the 27, the school was in the 27,
27%.
now we're in the 33rd.
And
Okay.
so the change we made at the middle school last year, they showed more considerable growth with the way that we
Did it last
implemented
time.
it now.
Uh-huh.
And so, it's a new program this year. It's going to continue to be worked on. And these are non-special ed students.
Not on stars. Only freckle.
Right.
Yeah.
Freckle,
So Freckle is the intervention.
Right.
And special ed students are get a reading intervention with a real teacher.
so these numbers on the stars are incorporating both the lowest who are taking freckle
Everybody.
and everyone else.
Yeah.
So it's not specifically freckles
No.
subset and showing the improvement for the kids that took freckle and what they did.
Right.
We haven't broken that
Right.
data out.
That's right.
This is a school-wide short cycle assessment.
But we do look at those individual sports.
Yeah, because that would be useful in determining if freckle is what we want it to be, I think,
Yeah, or, well, eventually,
eventually.
yeah. But right now, it's, how hard did you work on the stars
On the
test,
star stuff.
right? But eventually, it's going to show.
Well, I would think, I thought one of the things in the freckle was the fact that it sort of monitored
It
progress
does,
within the program they were working on.
it does.
Okay, so that data is somewhere.
It is, and that's what determines whether you get out of
Yes.
freckle or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that might be a different report on freckle. Is
Yes.
freckle working or not
Yeah.
working? What's the improvement? What's
Yeah.
the, okay,
But the point is here, we did meet our goal.
yes.
Right, and PED is
Yes.
coming, PED is coming back in January,
Uh-huh.
and we're going to be looking at the data.
they didn't just meet your exceeded the goal
Well, yes,
to a degree.
yes, and but like, they're not going to tell us because we went up by but we were a +12, that we met our annual goal.
Right, well, we still have another, 5 and 5.
That means we need to do another 5 and 5, that's right.
Yes.
But we were pleased with the.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and even in some ways, the culture of kids coming and taking the STARS test and us holding them accountable to have their butts here to take it. So to me, that's a good, nice indication of RFK culture for the students, that they're understanding, they're starting to have to do things that,
And the input from the teachers was that the students were really proud of their growth.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's the culture, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to, I don't care. Right,
So I have a question for you as a student, and that is, being in Freckles class is because you weren't making the progress on the test as much as you wanted. Getting a high rate of improvement resulted in $100 Visa card. What came to mind most as a student? What was it that you really wanted to get out of the Freckle class, or was that reinforcement that potential for $100, or what made the most difference to you?
I don't think it was really that big of a difference. I just said,
let's do this math test, and I did good on it out of the 3 other students.
So just both of those things helped you realize that you just wanted to do better.
I would say as a parent of class, just talking to other students that I know were in it, that the most thing was to get out of that class
Okay.
because they hated it.
Yeah.
They thought it was busy work,
Okay.
punishment.
Yeah.
When they didn't get the concept, if they would have just tried really hard on that test.
Yeah.
They
They
would-
would have never been in there, but I don't think they just, and not showing up, but, you know, as kids, who's gonna do that?
So the
They
switch
think,
was like,
yeah, and
So
I
they
mean,
realized they did it to themselves.
Yeah.
yeah,
okay.
and that's what
And then
I'm
they
saying.
could
It
undo it
wasn't-
to themselves.
It wasn't
They're in
punishment, but the kids I talked to, like, well, like even, I'll say ditching Freckle and stuff, cause I talked to a few other than just my own. Like, why aren't you guys trying? And they hated the busy work. They thought a teacher was gonna help them. They didn't understand why they were doing this busy work. I don't think they took the whole concept in to help them to improve on these scores. And if the motivation was to get them out of that class and to show up and try and do a little bit. Cause even my own came home and said, that test this time wasn't that hard. Like, you know, I was like, that's how it should have been from the start, but just that mindset of, I don't wanna be here.
And to the point, when we do the early warning system and we look at students and they've got late arrival, but their second period class is Freckle, they miss that class consistently and say, I'm not going to it. I'm waiting till December to take the test to prove that I don't need to be there, right?
So the other question I have is for you two, and that is, since there's fewer Freckle classes, that means that the staff can have different classes out there. How does that impact moving forward with the goals for the school?
So this is part of MLSS, this is multi-layered
Systems of support.
systems of support. And so, for a non-special ed student who needs at the 3rd grade level, we're required to put some sort of intervention. And Freckle takes that 3rd grade reader down to a 3rd grade reading level, and we cannot do that in an English class because it's not meeting the content standards for 9th or 10th grade English. And so, we need to put something in place. We think a blended class, where they're actually doing some reading or writing, as well as the requirements of a certain number of minutes in the program, is going to be a better way to deal with that.
Okay.
So it's evolving.
That using the tool, learning how to use the
Yeah.
tool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Questions? Anyone with questions? Okay,
Maybe we should bring some laptops and help.
I'd be happy to look at it.
Yeah.
See how great it is.
We'll assist you guys.
It's brutal.
We'll see what level I read at.
Yeah, comment on that as well. That other computer application itself is like, wow. If I would have had that, you could even use that and it's just amazing.
Really, the Freckle?
I haven't looked at Freckle, but Celis, it's,
I didn't really
it's,
care for
it's,
stuff too much.
He would have graduated in a year and a half.
It was
Pardon?
too
He would
much.
have graduated in a year and a half.
yeah, I would have punched that.
That's how it says really
Yeah,
easy,
it's
because it shows you the
before
proximity.
It's just cool. I didn't have, I had a chalkboard. And that was it. But anyway, very good. Yeah, it was real chalk, Mark.
There's this granite in the quarry. Okay, middle school update. Aaron, you still with us?
Sir, yes, sir. I'd just like to kind of piggyback off on a couple little comments there regarding the ceramics. That's actually some of our students who Robert shared, and I know that some of the board members who were present on Monday got to see some of the paper mache work that's being done at the middle school. And so when our middle schoolers went up to the high school to be participating in the event, they got to see some of those ceramics. And since Monday, they have been begging to get ceramics done at the middle school. So I know we're in a tough spot, but I know that's something that Robert and I were talking about earlier as well, is really trying to incorporate many different opportunities for art at the middle school, which I think will really kind of I mean, it'll just serve our students in so many different ways, for the positive. You know, looking at, you know, part of my report talks about, you know, one of the changes that we're going to be making is moving some of those classes around, shifting around to better support our students. And it is, I'll admit, it's pretty academic heavy with that intervention taking the place of another elective. So I will tell you that I think it's going to do well for our students. And to push back the Freckle into the content classes, I think it's really going to help. You know, part of the MLSS that we were talking about earlier, that, you know, the teachers have to differentiate their instruction. So supporting the students in small group 1 day a week while the students are working on intervention. You know, one of the big things at the middle school, bless you, Irene, one of the biggest things that I've seen for the scores at the middle school is we had 38 students at the beginning of the year who were considered to be in need of intervention. And those were the ones who, we still have 12 students who don't have enough test data. So we, you know, that's just part of the population, but 38 out of the 53 students needed intervention at the beginning of the year. And right after this, you know, we've dropped. So now 5 students no longer need intervention. We've had students that have moved between the bands within the assessment, which is urgent intervention, intervention, on watch, or at grade level. And so at the middle school, although our data wasn't as successful as what the high school was, you know, it was deflating. I'll admit it was pretty deflating, but diving into it and seeing some of the scores of our students increase was very encouraging. And I'm pretty optimistic that we're going to be right in mark of where we need to be. We're changing, you know, we're changing a culture. And that's one thing that I think that we need to remember and always, you know, just when we're frustrated, that's got to be the piece that pulls us out, is we're changing a culture. We're bringing in students to our schools who haven't been very too successful in some of the other school settings, and we're giving them that hope once they get to see some of that stuff. And so we got to start somewhere. So when we see the baseline data of the beginning of the year to where we are at middle of the year, you know, we had some students not take it seriously. And to Shane's point, you know, they at some point during the middle of the semester, they realized that, you know, hey, if I actually apply myself, I could probably get out of this. And that was evident in some of the students' data that we've had. So definitely, you know, want to, you know, we've got work to do. Don't get me wrong, but I think some of the changes that we're making here at semester are really going to support us, really making sure that falls into play for the next semester. But yeah, so I mean, good stuff coming up. Back to the report, you guys should have a copy of my report. Really, it was a successful semester. On multiple levels. I think, you know, everyone's, you know, kind of dragging through the finish line right now. But you know, it was good. So all grades were due yesterday. So at this point, you know, teachers are allowing some of those students to bring up those grades if they really want to. It does require a couple other tasks from teachers because they have to report a grade change. And so, but some of our teachers are allowing some of our students to bring in missing assignments, offer extra credit for some of those students who aren't happy where their current grade is at. Some students are content. So right now it's kind of a mix of teachers allowing students to do that enrichment activities and getting prepared for the spring semester. For us, we're focusing on getting our students prepared, you know, as well as administrators. We're continuing to use our 90-day plan as our guide moving forward. And so, you know, stay the course is where I'm at. I think we set lofty goals for us, but I think, you know, the data is proving that we're on track to where we need to be. We've met to address our 90-day plan, and we're going to push in a little bit more this next semester. We've discussed, you know, so some of the areas of the 90-day plan that I think we need to push in more, as Robert and I and Karen and I, we've all discussed, is the reading and writing components. And so that's going to be one of our focuses moving forward into the second semester, but we want to really kind of dive into not just the language arts class, but other contents as well. So that's going to be a big focus for all of us moving forward. As you know, I talked about the shifting of some of our classes to better support academic progress. So we're excited to see those changes moving forward. With regard to staff, we are holding on to our staff right now, I believe. I know that we're still trying to work through the budget situation. We do have a couple staff members that we may need to kind of look at possibly. But as it stands right now, I think we're safe to say that I think we're going to be able to move forward. Our current enrollment continues to be 63 students with 13 sixth graders, 21 seventh graders, and 29 eighth graders. However, at the start of January, we will be up to 65. And actually tomorrow I have my last interview of the semester with another student. So hopefully we will be at 66. Robert and I discussed earlier this week about me going to some of the libraries and community centers prior to break or even during break to drop off some postcards and some different flyers to really kind of attract some recruitment. You know, in the South Valley, the libraries and the community centers are pretty well attended, especially during the break times. So we're hoping that some of the families will be able to pick up some of those flyers and really kind of look at us as a possible option for them. Attendance, we're still working through that. Unfortunately, we've had to, you know, the numbers that we have at our school, they continue to fluctuate. We've been able to maintain, but it doesn't reflect the new students coming in because at the same token, we're having to let go of some of our students who just aren't attending. And so, you know, we're going to offer them a place to land when they need it. But at the same token, if that does happen, they will be placed on an attendance contract. So we're really trying to be supportive of families, but they have to understand that they have to do their part to get their student to school so that we can continue to do our part. But at the beginning of the semester, Ms. Crystal and I have met with many families over the last few weeks. And we will have a few students, up to about 8 students currently right now, who will start January on an attendance contract. And it's going to be a very, very strict contract, and all the parents are in agreement as well. And so we're hoping that that'll really help us this next semester as well. But I think that concludes my report. I stand ready for any questions, and I do want to apologize for not being in person. I finally get to be a dad this evening. I got to pick up my kids from school. And so that's why I'm not there. I got to be the parent tonight.
Aaron, would you
Sure.
would you talk just for a minute about the meeting with South Valley Academy?
Yes, so Clyde Ortiz and I actually met with South Valley Academy last week. And we were meeting with him in terms of possibly sharing, you know, information in terms of us where we could look for common families. South Valley Academy has a lengthy waiting list of students to get into the middle school. And so really, we're not trying to, you know, steal from them because they're actually on a waiting list, and I assume they're actually in other schools. But some of these families would like to be in the South Valley, and we want to offer them, you know, because we feel that we are connected with South Valley Academy, and so we feel that we can offer them a place as well. And so I got to meet with the administrator there at South Valley Academy, and we did discuss. We did go through the legalities, and it's not there's not any information that they can't. The information that they want to share with us, they are allowed to. It's considered public information. But I think the way that they want us to approach it is to, you know, just kind of like soft information going out to them. But we are going to start reaching out to some of those families who are on the waiting list as a possible option in the South Valley as well.
Great idea.
Yeah, since we are talking about that, and I'm sure everybody understands Taft Middle School situation.
Yeah.
Have you thought, Aaron, about recruiting those kids? It's around the corner from where I live. It's about 10 miles from here. I'm not sure if I would want to spend that 10 minutes in that amount of time getting here, but it's an option.
No, and definitely, you know, definitely an option. I'm very familiar with the Taft situation. My kids are actually Coronado students, and so we're, you know, in one way we're very, very pleased with the results of yesterday's meeting. But yes, no, definitely I have considered thinking about reaching up to the Taft families as well. You know, and just, you know, really putting it out there. I mean, Robert and I talked about just not focusing primarily at the South Valley, but going into community centers across Albuquerque. You know, because we do serve, you know, students of Albuquerque.
Awesome, thank you.
And for people who don't know, APS is repurposing and right sizing. And so last night at the board meeting, Taft Middle School was closed, and those students are being reassigned to Taylor Middle School. And the two schools are 1.8 miles apart. And then the Coronado Magnet Bilingual Program that's at the Coronado school on 4th Street will be moved to Taft. They have outgrown the Coronado building. And they will be adding a sixth grade, and then be growing it to a full middle school. And then the newcomer school, that is for refugee families, will go into that Coronado building. But they put a hold on Taylor, to give the Alvarado parents an opportunity to express their concerns, because evidently there's some real rub between Taft and Taylor. And but both schools were
The
below.
Sharks and the
Jets.
The Jets.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
both schools were down below 260 students. And then you begin to lose your librarian and counselor. So this would bring them above 500. And then the APS master plan, which is a $28 million into Taylor. And so it's a messy situation right now.
Yeah.
But that is a good suggestion. Right?
Rename it Taft Taylor.
Taylor for Taft.
Good.
Yeah. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron. Sounds good.
You.
Keep those bonds coming in. All righty. Kara,
All right, so
high school.
for the high school, the first bullet that I have on my report, we actually just covered with Robert's STARS report, so I have to read through that again.
Well, I mean, I want to make sure that you didn't miss anything, if you've got any other.
I don't mind reading it. So we finished up the semester, teachers entered final grades, students are ready for winter break. Students completed the middle of year, the MOY STARS assessment in reading and math. The data shows an 8% growth in reading, 11% growth in math for all students. But I guess it's 6% growth.
We got, they did more, the kids who had missed.
Oh, then
Right.
I reported this about a week
Yeah.
ago. You're right. Okay, so there's a little. This growth exceeds the projected growth described in our New Mexico Dash Plan. Again, we projected a 5% growth at middle of year in reading and a 5% growth in math. We're on our way to meeting our end of year goal of 10% in reading and math. The top 10 students received the gift cards. That was Monday night at the event. And they received them in reading and in math. We have 62 students on the tentative to graduate list. 42 are on track to graduate in May. As of right now, 4 are supposed to graduate early. And 16 are at risk of not graduating, so that's for all the interventions that are coming in with all the students who are failing one or more courses. And we track that pretty closely. Pete, our dean of students, is really good at tracking all of those students. The staff and especially the dean of students, Pete, are working with students to try to keep them on track. Evening school is an option for students to recover credits as our online courses are the syllabus. So we do have options to try to get them caught up. We're in the middle of planning the spring semester. We've been meeting about the master schedule. It's basically done. We've had a couple weeks this week. But we're partnering with CNM to offer some skills courses through CNM Ingenuity, which is going to be new this semester. All required core classes will still be offered, as well as capstone, welding, guitar, ceramic, media arts, information technology. We have dual enrollment, reading and math intervention classes, high dosage math tutoring, plus all evening courses. And all students will also have an advisory. So that's kind of what we've been mapping out for our courses in our semester.
That different than this last semester.
That in the CNM Ingenuity is, yeah, and
Yeah, talk a little bit more about what that ingenuity.
I'll let Robert have a real grasp on that. I'll let him speak to it.
And so started last year. But this program was really available. It was the end of the year, so youth conservation corps kids got to do it. And so part of it is interview skills, resume, and so we had to hear her say it was Randy.
To buy more things. Yeah.
Thanks, Zoe, appreciate it.
Thank you.
And so So there's an interview piece, a resume piece, and then there's an entrepreneurial component.
Okay.
And so they send different people down to do the different pieces, other CNM instructors. And then there is a career exploration component where they'll spend 2 weeks working with an electrician instructor, 2 weeks working with a plumbing instructor, 2 weeks working with a carpentry instructor, and then 2 weeks with an HVAC. So it'll take an entire semester, and then they will send a CNM recruiter down, and we do field trips up to actually look at those career opportunities. And then there will be an adult component, right? There will be an entrepreneurial component where adults can come in the evening. Adults are more likely to start a business than a student. And so they'll come and do a class. And we have a number of adults that are part of the SWEP program that are maybe from Mexico or somewhere else. They're here for ESL. And what they will do at CNM will look at their life experience. And so somebody might go into a nursing school in Mexico, but when you come to CNM, they give you no credit for it to make you start all over. I know somebody who has a degree in agricultural engineering, and he runs a paint and body program, but obviously medical. So they will look at that and they'll give them CNM credit based on those life experiences to help them move into a CNM program. So this comes out of a legislative appropriation from Representative Roybal Caballero. And that appropriation is for this year and for next year. We're really hoping not directed through Ingenuity, but directed directly to CNM to pay CNM instructors to come do the CTE classes, right? Currently we pay the CNM instructor to come down out of our budget or SWEP's budget to teach the class. CNM for some of the classes. So the welding class can only hold 8 or 9 students. If it doesn't have 20 students, CNM won't pay the instructor. A film class, we pay the first semester, and then those students will then do a dual enrollment class with that teacher. We do early childhood in the same way, culinary arts in a similar way. So this is really an opportunity to expose students because they generally don't get that type of exposure, right? And it really will align itself with Capstone. Eventually, if students really do want to go into a career field. So Clyde Ortiz is our career technical education coordinator, paid for by the school this semester, by SWEP next semester. And so Car Crafter, we have a paint body program. Car Crafter is interested in internships.
Okay.
SWEP is working with a new construction company. They have 80 employees. Many of them are Spanish speakers. They're going to be coming to learn English, but they're also interested in hiring graduates out of the GED program or out of the high school. They have electricians, they have plumbers, they have HVAC. So it's those collaborations.
Okay.
And Ingenuity is the for-profit arm of CNM. And so they're making a profit. The difference is that they have the flexibility to create programs and create pilots. So with the new facility, we're hoping that CNM instructors will be paid through this 80,000 and will actually deliver the CTE curriculum.
Okay.
That's the plan. It's the bridge.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that comprehensive bridge.
It's pretty comprehensive for $80,000.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and they really sent some really qualified people. So it's not the same person doing the whole thing. It's somebody's gonna come do the communication, interview skills, somebody will come do the entrepreneurial, and then different people will come for the actual trades piece. We are having a bit of a problem recruiting students because a senior wants to make sure that they're getting their core classes to graduate. And so we're pushing down into 11th grade and 10th grade where there's more flexibility. Irene and I found out yesterday an innovation zone grant has been changed by PED. We now have $42,000 paid in stipends. Students that take this class could earn a $500 stipend. Students that do the early childhood could earn a stipend. We're going to need to be pretty aggressive in order to get that money out. Anything related to career, and so
That's a sizable increase.
that's a sizable increase, right? And so, anybody who does an internship, so is always going to do an internship around agriculture. Agriculture is a career, technical education course. She will receive a stipend, for doing that, internship.
Okay.
So that's
Thank
where, yeah, that's where we're at, huh?
Yeah, 84 students, $500
That's a
each.
lot, yeah. That's
Yes, well, we.
84 students is how many you need?
If we did,
If we
if we
get
did
500.
500,
So many.
Right, and so it could be more.
yeah.
But, since we just found out yesterday, I'm supposed to send them the course numbers, for them to say, yes, those courses will qualify. And so, the registrar pulled them out, this afternoon,
Mhm.
it's a stack like that. We're going through, and,
For the applicants?
we're going through the courses that would qualify. And then at the beginning of the second semester, we're gonna go around and let students know that there's a stipend to be attached to it. And we're interviewing a teacher that I did an initial interview this week. We're gonna interview him tomorrow, who has a number of the certifications that would match them. Everything, we're just about done, a couple of little tweaks, those are the little tweaks that we'll work.
Okay. Any questions for Kara on the high school enrollment? Enrollment?
I didn't pull the enrollment number. We were sitting about the same, around 250.
232 at the high school, 63 at the middle school.
Okay, thank you.
It shows up on the financial report every month.
Yeah, it's back there, yeah.
And are you having ideas about enrollment or getting kids or?
We have kids coming in all the time. There's kids enrolling. We have this drop because of that early warning system that we talked about last council.
Yep.
But so there's been a dip, but we have students enrolling all the time. We have families calling all week.
Really?
I think when semester ends at other schools, they want to change. So we're getting lots of students coming in.
And we dropped 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of them are appealing.
So they may be back as well.
It's part of being a school first choice.
What grades are these that you dropped? You don't know? They're very, it could be any grade.
They come back with a different attitude.
So they do,
And a
Right.
contract.
and a contract.
Mhm.
But if you're only coming 50% of the time, when we do it, we look and they're not passing their classes. So if you were coming 50% of the time and you were managing to get all your work in and you're passing your class, we're not dropping that student. They are coming in and gonna sign a contract, right? But the goal for PED and the more rigorous intervention is 68%. So people below 70%, and they're considerably below 70%, are dragging that average down. And just like the reading and math scores, the idea is we need to hit those goals, right? And so our students who come all the time are helping that, right? But students who are coming 50-60% of the time are dragging that down, not passing the classes. They don't take their assessment seriously. So it's a scalpel, not a hammer. Out of all the kids that were on that list, 12 is not some crazy number.
Well, Robert, and I'd like to add too, when those students, if we, who are constantly missing and it comes time to state testing, we have to meet a certain percentage of students being tested. And when those students are on, they're not showing up and then they don't show up for the testing. So not only do we get dinged for, for their attendance, but then when the testing and we fall below the percentage of needing to be tested, then we get hit once again.
April had a comment in the back.
Yeah, so, well, two questions. So how long does the student have to appeal the withdrawal
They can appeal right away.
right away? And what is that process?
They come and meet with me.
Okay,
And so in the past, so it's a team that does the early warning system. So there's behavioral health, special ed, Cindy O'Neill, the counselor. And so there's a whole team. In the past, we've done something called student solutions that include the teachers. And we're going to move back into that so that the teachers really have a voice and understand why it's happening. And ideally have a closer relationship with that student and that parent through their advisory. And so, we're moving back into that sort of early warning system. Because it's well developed now, it's working, but all of a sudden, students were disappearing and teachers were going, where'd they go, where'd they go? And this way, early on, say, because these students will come out on a contract, the ones that are coming back. And even the ones we put out, they're welcome to come back, but they'll come back on a contract, right? And then they're going to need to maintain their attendance. But then the teachers will be involved with it and they'll be doing the reach.
thank you.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Okay, anything else on the high school questions? Okay, Kara, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday,
You too.
time off. Finance Committee report, Lawrence.
Okay, good evening. Happy to present the financial committee report for November. Please note that this is a financial summary and no financial decisions were made at the finance committee. I want to make sure we all understand that. We are simply looking at the health of our budget. There were 4 topics that Lanika and I discussed: headcount, revenue review, meaning how do we bring in money to the school, the affordability of key positions, and then financing post-retirement services, aka rehire. So I'll quickly go over that. Headcount insights. I'm pretty sure everybody understands that the break-even student number is about 360 students. In theory, this is the number we need to run the schools, which is about 260 students at the high school and 100 students at the middle school. The actual numbers are in the finance package that Irene submitted. Just to recap, we had 232 high school students, 63 middle school students, combined for a grand total of 295. That compared against our target of 395 is a reduction of about 100 students, which equates to a significant revenue loss. Irene, would you agree with that statement? I'm forecasting that's over $1 million lost.
Well, no, me and Robert are kind of on different ends of that one.
Okay,
Well, so where the conversation with Irene and I are, it's in the reduction. They'll use the unit value.
Yeah,
okay.
And so it's probably $500,000,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
All
I
right.
say 650, he says.
Yeah. And so, but, when we do the 910B5 and do the budget projection for next year, they will count every student and they're worth about $13,000 each. So then you're at $1.3 million on your number.
Yes, and that's how I got
Yeah.
that. Thank you. Team, this will be a recurring agenda item as student enrollment is our primary funding source. With regard to staff headcount, thought it would be prudent to let the team understand that we have 52 members on our payroll, 18 high school teachers, 5 middle school teachers, 12 education assistants, 1 executive director, 2 principals, 1 business manager, 1 dean of students, 8 office and other staff supporting the schools, 4 kitchen and maintenance workers. This is important as as salary or staff salaries represent 65% of our total budget. So that's the number we should keep in the forefront of our brain. Thank you, Alan. There, sorry, I'm reading and trying to think at the same time, which doesn't work out right. So with regard to staff position affordability, as we work towards managing an executive director position, it's clear that our current budget and forecasts do not allow for separate positions for the high school principal, the executive director, or the middle school principal. The finance committee and the middle school principal. The finance committee does not build employment staffing plans. Rather, we look at our financial health and the affordability issues that confront us all. With respect to revenue, Lanique and I discussed a number of areas that the board uses to generate revenue. So we thought it would be important to discuss how Robert finds the grant opportunities, what is the grant request process, and board members look for grants, fundraising opportunities, a coffee shop and a radio station that we've talked about, sources of revenue. We talked during Aaron's presentation about potential student recruitment from Taft Middle School. That's something that we should pursue in vigor. That school will close next year. My understanding, it took approximately 10 years for student enrollment to drop to the level that triggered the school board. Any insight on that, Robert?
Oh, the APS board.
The APS board.
Yeah, 20 years ago, it was 92,000, right? So they're reporting a little,
APS was.
yeah, and so they reported 10 years ago, so it was like in the 80s, right? It's at 72 and fall. So initially, the charters were to blame, and they're partially responsible. But really, it's an aging population in New Mexico. People are retiring here. And people are not having the same number of children. And so there are less kindergarten students. Right, that's part of what APS will look at. There are less kindergarten students come now, right? Like half of what there were 10, 12 years ago. And so they are projecting less students moving forward. So one of the strategies that APS uses in right sizing, and they did it with Solanas Elementary, is they're now enrolling 3 and 4 year olds in pre-K and early childhood development. Those students now generate money through PED. So that's one of the ways that APS is repurposing schools in order to count those younger students.
Yeah, and the reason I mentioned 10 years, it was just as I was doing some financial analysis. Does that say we have 10 years to get our enrollment numbers up, or could it end sooner than that?
Who, RFK?
RFK.
So no, I think the CTE piece is really the thing, right? We have to offer something that other people aren't offering.
Okay.
Right?
Shouldn't take 10 years. I mean,
It should take around. It should take 2.
Yeah.
All right.
And next year is the difficult one because of the shortfall that's come.
Yeah, and the financial takeaway for the board is that the Taft Middle School closure is real. It happens, and those kids are moving into other schools, and we should take advantage of that. I'm gonna say it. We should do some recruiting to help build our numbers.
And they closed La Luz as well. La Luz? Yeah. And actually, sign language school, the Albuquerque Sign Language School.
Not only that, but there were probably 75 Taft parents at the school board meeting last night that were very unhappy with what was going on.
And this is all in the venue of our strategy to be the school of first choice. So Lanique and I talked about that. She mentioned that last night. It was a very good point on her behalf. And you know, that's, I'll say it's not uncommon to poach students and employees from other areas. You know, if you want to be the school first choice, we have to have those.
We're offering them opportunities.
Yes.
We're not
Yeah,
poaching.
poaching.
Okay.
Excuse me.
That's right. That's right.
When I think we're seeing that increase as well in those test scores and things like that, because we're becoming a school of first choice. So, you know, we really only have one way to go is up. So I think that that's really shows the difference, and especially with, you know, working on attendance and all those things, I think it's showing huge progress forward in changing, instead of being the school of last resort to the school of first choice. So I think it's been really great. I think you guys have done a great job.
Let's see, the last topic I had, post-employment contracting, we need to start early in understanding contracts, for professional services, the pay rates and work hours for post-retirement hires. This early discussion ensures we are prepared financially for any reemployment. So we should start doing that, in the next couple of meetings. I'll look into, how we go about issuing contracts for professional services and working with Irene on pay rates and work hours and what's allowable and what's not allowable. So I'll start looking into that. The Finance Committee also recommends to the board that we approve the financial package presented by Irene. As always, each board member is highly encouraged to review the financial package before our monthly meetings. Overall, our health is at a red level, and that's communicated in the back of the report under red. I think it calls for some type of monitoring. I can't remember what the exact words are, but anyway, it's in there. Overall health is in red. We have 3 bars that we will review in the next section. And that concludes my summary. I now hand it over to Lanika. She had some questions on some financial details. So thank you for your attention on that.
I just have a couple of quick questions, Irene. I really love the request for reimbursement summary. Thank you so much for that. There were a couple that we didn't invoice, and I just wanted to know, is that because there was no activity in those funds, or?
Yes, that's exactly.
Okay, and then, I know that one of our bars is reverting some funds, and I'd really like to not do that going forward. Is there anything that's restricting our capacity to be able to bill for these?
So, the bar you're talking about is our YCC. And, that money is, so say if we don't have the full amount, if we're not fully staffed for YCC, I can't use that funds for anything else. It has to be, it's restricted on what I can spend it on, so. That's why we end up having to revert some of those funds.
Right, I understand that, and but was it because that we couldn't hire somebody, nobody was meeting the qualifications, or?
Yeah, it's the students that we hire for YCC. So say, for example, when they're only allowed to work 20 hours a week. If one of them call in, they can't exceed that 20 hours. And in the fact that we have, we're very limited on the staff that can work with them, or that are willing to work with them. I can't let them make up hours. I can't make it up during the day. There's just different limitations on it. So once that happens, that money is lost. So I can't, yeah.
And so is there anything so far in the grants that we have now that have some type of capacity issue like that would also make us have a need to revert funds?
It just kind of depends. I mean, on the innovation zone, this one that Robert was talking about for the stipends for the students, that'll be another one, so that if we're not able to spend all that $42,000 for stipends for the students, say there's not enough involvement by the students, then we would end up having to revert the remaining amount of that. Because a lot of these grants are not, we can't carry them over. They have to be expensed in the current fiscal year.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Okay, and then what about that? So the usage tutoring, I know that's one of the ones that we haven't spent anything from yet this year. And
those are stipends for the teacher that is doing the high dosage tutoring, and those stipends haven't been paid out yet. So that's, yeah.
But when I get what I'm asking, and it might just be the way I'm asking it, is for the ones that we haven't billed yet for, do you feel like we'll be able to use those funds?
Yeah, we'll use all those funds. It's just very limited, a small amount that we might not use.
And
And it would just be a partial amount that we don't use, not the full thing.
And to add to that, just so we all understand, the table that we discussed were the requests for reimbursements are for our summaries, right?
Yes.
And if you look there, high dosage tutoring, fund 27,512, 30K. 0% bill
Mhm.
as an example, but it's in this report that we get.
So, Lanika, another example is we have a $100,000 legislative appropriation that is sitting in the county. We've been asking for it to be released. We're close to having it released.
Okay,
And it will be to pay the CNM CTE instructors that come down.
okay,
We would have liked to had it from the beginning of the year. We would have been
right,
spending it now, right? Because we pay CNM teachers out of the operational budget. They
Okay.
will not let us go retroactive. So they will not let us go back to the beginning of the year and bill. So we're going to have to push that money out during the second semester. So Irene and I have put a budget in place, a plan in place to expend that money, right? But we need that money in our budget at the beginning of the second semester, because that's when we begin to pay those people. So part of the grants have to do with timing, right?
right,
And the YCC is unique in that at the end of June, it carries over. And then those students work through September. But it's like Irene said, they cannot make up hours. They get a 2-week window, right? And then they're
20 hours, they can't go over 20 hours.
right
in one
for the week, right? So if a student misses a day, there's no way Irene can push that money out anymore.
right,
So that accumulates, and generally YCC grants have a revertment of about 20% statewide. Right?
okay. I just want, I don't know, I'm different, used to a different type of grants, but still ones that you had to spend by the end of the year. And I just want to, try to limit what we revert, but I also needed to understand why. So.
Right, and so like the Title I,
Mhm.
it won't carry over. And so Irene budgets salaries into that. Because that way she knows she's gonna pay that salary out every month.
Right.
So those will get spent.
But you-
IDEA that doesn't revert, so she puts salaries into that line item so that it will get all spent out. We work hard to spend all the money, but sometimes it comes down to timing.
Right. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Irene.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. If I could have a motion to approve the finance committee report.
Finance committee report.
Second? I'll second it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Passes. Cash disbursement?
You know me, I always have a couple of questions on the cash disbursement, sorry.
No, you're fine. Just give me a minute. I'm opening it up.
No worries.
The total cash disbursements for the month, $620,406.97. Here's the first section of them for you guys to review. Let me know if you have any questions.
I just wanted to know for cooperative educational services, what that is?
That is our ancillary services, which include like our social worker we have,
Okay.
our diag.
Occupational therapist.
Okay, perfect. And then the, but Deli's bilingual office support.
She's the office manager at the middle school. And,
Okay.
in addition to, obviously, she's the bilingual support as well over there.
So she actually graduated from RFK, created a small business and contracts with us to do that at the middle school.
Oh, that's awesome. And then I always ask, and I'm gonna ask again, Remind me, what is Jacob Gutierrez?
He's the welding instructor we have.
Welding instructor, okay.
So that's an example of a CNM welding instructor that comes down, that comes out of our budget. And
Right.
would be coming out of the county fund, if we had it available. And the idea is that that money would come out of the county money second semester and free up that expense in the operating budget.
Perfect. And you are, I'm sure, just working with the county to get that money over.
Yeah, I am a thorn.
Yeah, I would assume yes.
And so SWEPT also has an appropriation over there, so I really try to make SWEPT be the thorn. But the paperwork for RFK is moving through the same way. That way they're not mad at RFK, they're mad at me from SWEPT, so.
Okay.
But they're both in the stage of opening a purchase order. So they've been signed, the contracts exist, but we cannot access that money. And then it comes, and Irene would need to do a budget adjustment to get it into our budget, right?
Right.
Then it would need to go to PED to be approved, or Irene could
Spend
expend that
any,
money.
yeah.
Do you have a copy of the contract yet?
Yeah, we already have a copy of the contract. Robert has signed off on it, and I've sent it back, and that's the stage we're at right now.
Is there any way they would let you submit the budget adjustment with just the contract while we're pending the PO?
No,
No.
Dang it.
we asked.
Has to be a fully executed contract with the purchase order, then I can, present it to you guys to approve and then PED.
And actually, Lanika, part of the issue is there's a brand new county manager, right?
Okay.
So things have gone through legal, it's been signed, that's just where we are. Now, we've asked to have it the 1st of January. And so don't be surprised if we call for an emergency board meeting, so that we can get it approved and move it forward, right?
Definitely.
I don't want to say we're desperate, but we want that money 3 months ago.
Right. Okay.
Good. Any more questions on cash disbursement?
Not on cash dispersal, but I have a question on the request for reimbursement.
Okay.
CTE that's got 11.8 in there, hasn't been spent. Is that,
The what?
what is that about?
Oh, it's the equipment.
We're gonna use it to buy equipment for our new CTE facility.
Okay, so that's the welding in the
Yes.
shop.
Yeah. And so, before the end of the year, we will do it,
Yeah,
but, we would like a place to put it, right?
well, yeah.
Yeah, and so we could have spent it other ways, but we know we're gonna need $100,000 worth of equipment.
Lots going
And
on.
yes, and so that will be one welding setup, or, last year there was an engine analyzer that we bought that would,
Okay.
so that will get spent, right?
Yeah. I know that.
Along those lines, does NMPED use the term encumbrance?
Yes,
So that's something, if you have a large purchase item, say 100 grand, it's encumbered, it's gonna be part of the carryover going on next year. It's conceivable on these reports, we see a 0 at the end.
sure, but, so it's encumbered when it's put into the budget.
Mhm.
And so if it's a person, right, when she puts the salary in there, it's encumbered, right? And will be paid out,
Yeah.
over,
Before the end of the fiscal year.
Got it, I'm good.
Mhm.
because you can't really encumber supplies like that, right?
Yeah.
You have to get them and they need to be here.
Okay, so if I could have a motion to approve the cash disbursement.
Motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes.
Good conversation.
Bars,
Mhm.
have 3 of them?
Yeah, the first bar I have is bar number 19. It's an initial budget. It is the Carl Perkins. Again, it's a CTE award we have, and it's $10,000, 10,627. Sorry. Again, we're gonna use it for equipment for the CTE facility. Okay, the second one is YCC. It's a decrease and it's bar number 20, and it's just to clear it off our books. That is the remaining amount that we did not use.
Good night.
Yeah, I could not.
And that ended at the end of the semester.
That ended in the beginning of October. Mm.
So that first,
And then you'll see an award letter coming,
for the next.
yeah, we're expecting it.
Maybe tomorrow, yeah.
Okay.
The next one is Ed Fallows. It's number 21. It's an initial budget. We have one employee that is an Ed Fellow, and it will cover her salary. A small amount, we can purchase a laptop for her. And
So Ed Fellows is a program for somebody who's like an education assistant, but is working towards being a teacher. The money comes out of the public education department through the Rural Education Collaborative. We get that money, we pay that person, and then there's $1,000.
yeah, they get a stipend that helps them pay for their education, books, whatever they need for. Yeah, it's,
that's
well, it's
part
in
of
here. It's part of it, yeah.
And the full name is New Mexico Educator Fellow or Education. Fellow. Yeah, so I read Ed Fellow and I was going, who's Ed Fellow?
Who's Ed Fellow? I know Ed
Yeah.
Fellow.
New Mexico Education.
So we don't put a lot of people in there, but this particular EA came from another school. We hired her a month or so ago, 2 months ago.
School.
Couple months, yeah, at least.
And so she was an Ed Fellow at the other school, and so Irene worked with Ed Fellows to get that transferred over here. And so we will cover her salary.
Cause with the Ed Fellow program, they have to still do quite a bit. They have to take these classes every month.
Okay.
And in order to qualify for that stipend, they have to have taken all the classes, things like that.
And some people take advantage of it in the wrong way. They schedule, so we have to give them the time off to do their classes.
Mhm.
And so if they schedule their classes in the middle of the day, it's a problem. And she's doing online.
Right.
It's not
Yeah,
effective for ability to work, and she's gonna be a fabulous teacher when she's, so,
yeah,
Is it
she's
the-
taking she's taking advantage of the program, but in a positive way.
yeah.
She even looks at like, scholarships and stuff she can get for school, so.
Great.
Just for the group's benefit, it's a 2-year program managed by New Mexico. Community.
2 years, so she's in it for 2 years, or she was in it a year, this is her second year.
Yeah, the idea is that it runs for 2 years and it's back up for appropriation again this year.
What is her subject area?
She wants to be a math teacher.
Math is what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sit down.
We need math teachers.
All of them are okay.
Mhm.
And she's a special ed EA, right? So she'd be a special ed math teacher. So, yeah.
Yes, that's good.
Okay, great. So if I could have a motion to approve the bars that were discussed together but are voted on separately.
I'll make that
I'll make
motion.
a motion.
I'm not gonna repeat that.
They're voted together and recorded separately.
That too.
Yes.
Yes. As you said. Can I get a second?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, passes. Strategic planning, student enrollment budget.
So I think Lawrence addressed the idea pretty well. We're gonna need to come up with a plan. I think we need to wait for the 120th day. Irene and I were looking at the comparison between last year's 120 day and this year's 40 days. And so enrollment had gone up on the 120th day. It was lower on the
Last year?
80th day, yeah. And it had gone up to 314 or something.
Yeah.
And so, once we get to the 120 day, we're gonna have a really good idea of how to project. It's a 60-day session. It's a 60-day session, and so we won't know the unit value until February. Right.
Maybe even March.
Yeah, and so, well, we'll get an idea, but they won't issue it to
Yeah,
us,
They
right?
won't release it.
But once we know what the unit value is, we can begin to do the calculation. Because, so they just signed off on the 40-day today, right? And so they have to do that because they've got to figure out how much to cut.
Mhm.
And so now they're gonna know how much to cut.
Mhm.
And so, once we get to the 120 day, then we will know how many special ed students, how many bilingual students. And then once we know the unit value, I mean, I have an Excel spreadsheet that we put it into, so even before we get
You showed us,
our
you showed
910,
us.
yes. So the 910B5 that they send us, we've got a mock-up, that we run it through.
So the 40-day count is against this year's budget.
It is against this year's budget,
And then the
the
80-day
80-day and 120-day average,
average between the two
yes, is the projection
is
for
it for
next year.
next year? Okay.
And the difference is that, in that budget projection, each student will be worth $13,000, as opposed to this cut, that they'll be worth $6,000 or something.
Mhm. Depending, they
Yeah.
just take an average, yeah.
Strategic planning session. So given where we are, I know we've talked about this each week, each month. We've got a retreat, training scheduled for January 18th. Already on the books that we talked about at our last. Do we want to use that as a strategic planning? Do we need to add some time? And use that as my point to us as a board is we need to do this probably sooner rather than later. Because with the new director, whoever that is coming in, it needs to be clear to that person exactly what the strategic plan is, as well as the change and shift that's going on here with CTE, enrollment, budget, school of first choice, all of those kinds of things are operating. Robert leaving, all of those are pretty important factors, and we as a board obviously are the ones who have to keep the ship going in the right direction
I think it's gonna be really hard without a budget number.
to do a strategic planning.
And I think
Okay, well,
that's just my opinion. I mean, now, because January, I don't think the enrollment's gonna be where it's going to be on February
I'm waiting for them to win.
the 120, yes, first Tuesday, in February.
So you think in March,
Yeah,
April?
so the trainings are valuable.
Well, the training, we can do the training.
Right.
Yeah, separate of the strategic plan. But I'd like to get a strategic planning schedule.
Yes.
So we all.
I think we could do one independent of finances is.
Yeah.
It's thinking forward looking for what we want the school to do.
Yeah, regardless of,
Yeah. It's my-
okay. So I'll send an email to the board. Saying we need to get a strategic planning. Are there any ideas now? We probably don't want to do it on the 18th. We have other things we want to do. April,
No, I'm fine.
on the 18th?
Yeah.
Well, weren't we talking about having,
Jennifer,
Jennifer?
so I could talk to her, but she and I, so if we're gonna do it on the 18th, I'd like to do it in the afternoon because I've got a.
Well, it doesn't have to be the 18th. We can see what her availability is.
I'll be speaking to her.
Okay, so Robert, if you'd let me know what her availability
I've
is.
asked her to schedule some time to meet with you.
Okay, and then I'll send it out to the board with some options. Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
One comment on strategic plans, there's a lot of good stuff on the internet on strategic plans. I looked at, schools from east of the Mississippi and read their strategic plans. I mean, ours is kind of like theirs. So it's a lot of stuff to look at.
Thanks so much.
So I appreciate the conversation with Jennifer because I'm in the middle of a strategic plan with South Valley Academy and she's doing it. And so she's got a very nice timeline and.
Yeah.
Got a little proposal.
Yeah, so let's get that info so we can get us on track. Okay. ED search update, we've got a job description and a job, what's the first?
Job announcement?
job announcement and a description.
Yeah.
It's getting final review right now. When we get that draft edit back, I will send it to all the board members. So you can take a look at it. Then the next step in that is to make the announcement. And then the process is that Alex will, the initial resumes and cover letters that are coming in will be screened by her before the committee is looking at them. Then the committee will further screen those or evaluate those. And then those will go to a larger population, including parents or very parent. Michelle Starnes from Johns Hopkins, who does this work around the country. Some staff people put together, wherever you think those, a teacher, a staff, whatever, to get as much input from everybody before any kind of an offer it's not an offer even. The next step, once we've all looked at them and kind of have prioritized them, we'll follow up with them. And then, we're only gonna have 2 to 3 that we're gonna offer the position to. Those 2 or 3 will come to the school, look at the school and be interviewed, come to a board meeting, or the board needs to be there, staff need to be there. Parents, as everyone who has a stake at RFK, I would like to invite to those meetings. So everyone understands and that individual understands who exactly is here. So that's the timeline, that's the process. We're hoping to have is it April?
Me or the real April?
What is our date? What's our timeline on?
Talk about the month.
No, that's okay.
Our timeline on having someone actually offer our offerings? February, wasn't it February to March is the?
That's
is
the application,
application.
closing, opening and closing.
February to March, 1st of February to the end of March. That's the application timeline. So then March,
June was when you were gonna have somebody new, I thought.
was it June?
Yes.
Contractor started July.
And also mention that we are gonna have an interview process. And I think that we are gonna solicit interview comments from each board member, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so everybody will get
On
that.
our interview,
Yes.
on the first initial. Yeah, so we're gonna wanna make sure you have 1 or 2 questions.
I think that we need to have a core set of questions that we ask every one of us.
Well, that's already on there.
Yeah, we need to develop those
Yes.
questions that are.
And it's on our agenda, with Alex, she'll help us develop that and we'll farm that out to you guys.
And she's identified 3 areas on the cover letter.
Okay.
So in the cover letter, they need to address, and they're the issues you would have,
Yeah, and this will be
Yeah.
a board decision, not the 3 of us. It's the current committee is Mark, myself, and you.
And we're there to just,
We're doing the heavy lifting.
yes, I mean, you don't have to worry about all of it.
Now, in the first step, is that a screening to weed out
Yeah,
Unqualified people.
and unqualified, meaning?
Some of the requirements need an
All the-
academic licensure. They don't have that.
And that's where I'm getting at.
Yeah.
You don't need an academic license. It's not required.
Then we need to
because-
discuss that.
Yes, and
Thank you, Carmen.
I know of charter schools that have done very, very well with a non-licensed individual, and I know charter schools that have gone out through certified folks. And so you gotta look at the folks beyond that.
Yeah, we did talk, and Mark, yeah, we did look at that, so I'm all ears, because I don't know if we do or we don't, so
Well-
I'm.
so some of that, Carlos, is budgetary. We don't have budget for 3 people. We don't have budget for an executive director, a high school principal, and a middle school principal.
No, but correct me, Carlos, your comment was that we don't have to limit it to people who don't have a license or people who do have a license. It's open to everybody.
Yes, because there's a way for that individual
To get it.
to get it.
Yes.
And there's a lot of charter schools that have
So,
gone.
so we
that.
did, Mark, we did put a little caveat and
We
said
did.
that willing to get, or able to get
Able
the
to get-
license within
Right.
2 days or whatever it is.
So,
We
so that's why I'm trying to clarify the first step. If the first step is to throw some applications in the trash, that's why we need to go through that and agree to it, because I spent many years removing charters from schools that had a lot of licensed people. And it didn't go well.
Right.
And I know charters that have done fantastic
Without it, right?
with an individual that had a lot of heart and worked like hell to get a charter school from the bottom. Bottom to excelling and I was sold.
You mentioned
I
that
was
on our
sold.
call.
I was convinced and I was a skeptic at the beginning. I said, no, they don't have the credentials to get it.
So Carlos, when we send around the job description or the announcement, be sure you read it to make sure that that's.
Yeah, and fair questions, I'm sorry.
Well, just to make sure
Yeah.
that from what we're putting out there, we're not ruling someone like that out.
And I agree, and April had mentioned this during our discussions with Dallas, and I'll be very candid. I don't know what's permissible or not permissible, so.
Well, I do know that Robert grows his own teachers, so,
And I did not have an administrative license.
Right.
Okay, it was 5 years before I had.
and he's
But
used that
you
term
have the
quite
heart.
a bit.
Well, but there does need to be a licensed administrator.
Yes, it eventually, it
Well,
There needs to be a licensed administrator. Now, the way, and I haven't read all the way through it, but the first part I read, is ED could supervise an administrator.
yes, and they, at one time they had a program, and it's a 2-year program.
Yes,
And the board and the administrator has to buy into it
Yep.
as part of their contract.
Yep.
To go through the 2-year program, and it's not easy.
right.
right.
But at the end of those 2 years, they come out licensed.
So-
And, you know, I don't wanna limit our search
Right.
for a licensed individual that's not going to. My contention is that RFK is the best there is. And we gotta get an individual to fit that. Licensed or unlicensed, I don't wanna limit.
So Mark, I'll make this motion that the three of us, you, myself, and April, we need to do some homework on this to make sure that it's reflects what we need.
That's not a motion.
I'll just say,
Yeah,
Well,
an
again,
action item.
Again, so what we're doing is we will send it out to the whole board. You guys give us your comments, give us your information, and then we'll.
And the point I'm making is I'm hearing everything. We're not gonna forget anybody. We're gonna make sure we do it right.
Right, that's the intention.
Yes.
And the South Valley Academy was started by Alan Marks, and he did not have his admin license. And he did exactly what you said.
And Alan Marks was my teacher.
Well, this is a school of first choice. It has to be a first choice most, and the staff too.
That's right, staff and administrator. Okay, Robert, report?
Yeah, my report, I think we covered most of it. My biggest concern has to do with student count. And with the cut that's coming, so at the beginning of the year, we had 1.6 million in carryover, and that was what was going to be used to front end the construction of the building.
Yeah.
That's now a concern. And when we get to the retreat, I'm working on an alternative way to fund the building. I really don't want to put it out publicly right now because I'm working sort of behind the scenes on it. But I think there's a very strong possibility that we're going to be able to do it a different way. Wait till January. I have a comment after the holiday. the other piece is, look, we've shown growth, on STARS testing. I think, that one of the goals with the PED and the more rigorous intervention is the work around reading, and writing, in the classroom. And so my focus, our focus, is going to be around, what curriculum teachers have created for next semester and what that instruction looks like. We have some new teachers that show a lot of promise. We have some veteran teachers that, I'm not sure why they're a level 3 teacher. And so when we get to the point of staffing, it's going to need to get to, what we can afford and what pieces are going to be there. And so, there's got to be some expectation around what instruction looks like. We have 10 non-negotiables, and some of those 10 non-negotiables are not part of what's going on. And so, that's my focus. I think it really needs to be the focus of whoever's coming in. They need to be an instructional leader. They need to understand, and you could be a professor at it and know good. Right? And so, but if you could be from the military and know good instruction, right? I certainly got good instruction in electronics while I was in the Air Force. Enough so that I taught electronics for the Air Force. And so, good quality instruction has got to be the focus moving forward, here in order for us to meet the goals of the PED have put on us, and moving forward. And so that's my focus. I didn't participate in observations this semester. I am going to the second semester because we've got some really good teachers, and I want to make sure that they're being supported. Linda Sanchez talks about that which is monitored gets worked on. And so I think that's important. I also think that there's got to be another instructional coach. Linda Sanchez is at the end of her career. I think it's really critical as we move forward that we identify that as a need, because if the person that the council is going to hire is not a strong instructional leader, there's got to be a very strong instructional coach, right? That is given that task, and is going to carry that.
What is the book in focus? What is it?
Oh, yeah.
Leading focus.
Yes.
Did you bring one of the books?
Did I what?
Did you bring any of the books?
No, I'll bring some.
I forgot to tell you. to bring
So I will, I'll order them.
Yeah,
It's a short.
Is it leading with focus?
Leading with focus.
Yeah.
So Carlos, and Bob and Lanika, there's a book, Leading with
Remind
Focus.
me and I'll order a set for the council.
Sure.
okay?
Mhm.
Leading with Focus, which is a short book. It's about 100 pages only. It's the big margins, large print.
I was gonna say, why are you looking at me, Mark, when you say that?
I'm looking at all this.
It talks about a dozen turnaround schools.
And it's got pictures, so.
It does not have pictures.
Charts and diagrams, but.
I want pictures.
And,
Pictures?
and actually Michelle gave it to Robert. And we all need to read it because it talks about how schools in the lowest performing schools in Boston, Chicago, Tucson, and somewhere else went to the top schools. And it was not because they had the flashiest programs. It's not because they had Freckle. It wasn't because they had whatever the newest, fanciest ceramics class. It was about the certain way that teachers taught the same
Right.
curriculum. And it was just repeated. It's nothing fancy. It's just repetition.
And name of the book again.
Leading with focus.
Robert's got some. And I think what it really requires is someone who is like a bulldog on holding teachers accountable for just a couple things. But they can't wiggle on those things. You know, it's like, you have to do this. Well, I
Right.
don't like to use on it. Doesn't matter. You have to do this, then you can do what you want.
Right.
And so They have a
It's how
lot
you
of
do it,
research,
not necessarily what you're going to cover.
20 years of research.
Yeah.
That this has been the one thing that has changed schools.
And the author is, and it's Mark's favorite term, Mike Schmoker. That's how he said it at the meeting, Mike Schmoker.
That's confidential.
So-
Confidential information.
So I've read a lot of books, Teach Like a Champion, a lot of books. I think this is just nuts and bolts. And so Mark and I were both wrestlers in high school. He describes it as like, you have to practice a single leg takedown over and over and over, so that it becomes muscle memory. And so teachers get into a routine, so a 10 under coach will say you need to have the objective up, right? But how do you evaluate that objective? There needs to be a do now. How do you start your class? And you have to have something that the students are reading, not it being read to them, right? And then there needs to be challenging vocabulary, and then there needs to be writing in the classroom. And so it's pretty simple stuff,
It is simple,
right? But then it needs to be monitored.
but it needs to be consistent.
And it needs to not be attacking the teacher, it needs to be teachers sharing best practices and encouraging rather than isolating teachers. And it builds a culture, right? And so.
And it's all laid out very succinctly in the book. And it's short. The first half talks about that. Second half is really to do like a checklist for, you to look at the, are we doing those? Giving them to the teachers, are they doing them, and all that stuff. Yeah, so I thought it was kind of hopeful, to really give us some academic rigor.
I'm so thrilled that you read it while you were hiking in Arizona.
I need more data on Mark.
Because I'm in Arizona, I said, would you take this book with you?
Well, it's a pretty easy drive on 40, I could just.
Oh, my.
Is that the cruise control? 85?
So I think.
As far as what?
I think
I'm thinking in there,
that's
are
pretty
you?
much, what I've covered.
Yeah, okay.
That's good.
Training hours, we have all conflict of interest. Let's remember, Irene, next time
Yeah,
we do our agenda,
mhm.
we can get rid of conflict of interest forms.
You sure?
I
But what if we have new members? No, I'll take it off.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll take it off.
Okay, is there anything
Is
else?
there anybody missing their training?
I'm
Yes,
still-
me.
All right, so they've got them online now that are really easy.
Yeah,
Really,
is that the Oasis? What is that? called?
Yeah.
isn't it you did for SBA, isn't it?
Candace.
It's in Canvas.
Candace.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna do mine, I have some days off for the holiday.
You don't
They're
need
very
days,
simple.
need a couple hours.
Yep.
Okay.
Do it while you're driving.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so.
That's a good idea.
Could I have a motion to it?
You heard
Is there
about the
anything
story
else?
about Watch Livermore driving and reading.
Is there anything else that you want to
And how the tree jumped out in front of him.
Yeah, I did wanna mention,
It's a quantum. Everything's moving.
I do wanna, I really appreciate Carlos's comments on that, board and, I'll be candid. I just read what's in front of me, right? It says you gotta have it, I'm thinking you gotta have it, so appreciate that comment and we'll get that incorporated.
Well, there's nowhere that really says. What.
You have to have a licensed administrator.
At the school,
Yes,
but not the EP.
that's right, that's right.
That's all.
I'm
Okay, if I could have a motion to close the meeting at 6:28,
make the motion to close the meeting at 6:28.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Bye. Happy holidays. See you next year.
Hey, Robert, do you mind if I get?
Yeah.
a copy of the-
That's it, so.